The first episode of Andor Season 1 is titled Kassa. The episode begins with Cassie and Andor walking through the rainy, dimly lit streets of Morlana 1, a corporate-controlled planet, in the year 5 before the Battle of Yavin. Cassian, wearing a hood, makes his way through the wet alleyways to a brothel, visiting for the first time. Inside the crowded brothel, he begins asking around for information about a Kenari woman, his sister, who used to work there but disappeared months ago. One of the women working at the brothel tells him that whoever she was, she left 6 months ago, and no one knows where she is now. As Cassian exits the brothel, 2 corrupt corporate security officers, known as Corpos, hassle him. Cassian tells them that he doesn't want any trouble and that he has 300 credits in his coat pocket that they can take. He puts his hands up and waits for the nearest guard to frisk him before unleashing a series of quick, brutal moves. Cassian ends up killing one of the Corpos by banging his head on the ground. The other begs for his life, but Cassian hesitantly shoots him too, not wanting any witnesses. Cassian then makes a hasty escape from the planet. Afterward, Cassian returns to his home planet, Ferrix, a free trade world in the Morlani system. Cassian's loyal droid, the red-plated B2 EMO, heads out to the scrapyard and then back to Cassian's hideout, where he finds Cassian visibly distressed and scared. Cassian asks the droid whether anyone came the previous night asking for him. Desperate to cover his tracks, he asks B2 EMO if it has enough charge left to lie for him. The droid assures him that it does. Cassian then instructs B2 EMO to tell anyone who comes looking for him that he wasn't there. Next, Cassian visits his friend Brasso to craft his alibi further. He concocts an elaborate lie and asks Brasso to cover for him in case someone comes asking for him. Meanwhile, news of the Corpo Squad commander's death reaches Deputy Inspector Cyril Karn and his boss, Chief Hein. Hein wants to sweep it under the rug, telling Karn to forget about it and go about his business. The chief explains that he knew one of the men who was killed and describes him as one of the most unpleasant people he'd ever known. He adds that they were drinking in a brothel while on duty, which would have been grounds for suspension. Hein concludes that the Corpos must have interfered with the wrong man and died in a fight. He instructs Karn to write a report saying they died helping others, but not to make it too heroic. However, Cyril is determined to investigate, convinced it was murder and not an accident. As soon as Chief Hein leaves for a conference, Cyril starts the investigation. He traces a ship that left Morlana 1 on the night of the murders and discovers it went to Ferrix. He then puts out a bulletin asking for information on a Kenari male suspect on Ferrix. The episode then flashes back to Cassian's childhood on Kenari, where he lived with his sister in a remote tribe of children. They witness a ship crash land in the forest, and the tribe prepares to investigate, marking their faces and arms with black paint. Back in the present, Cassian visits Bix, an ex-lover, and asks her to connect him with a buyer she knows. He wants to acquire an untraceable starship to get off-world and lay low. Cassian tells Bix he has an invaluable part of an untraceable starship. Initially, Bix hesitates and asks how he got the part. However, after Cassian's repeated requests, she finally agrees and secretly contacts her anonymous buyer Luthen Rael about Cassian's valuable starship part. Later, some local criminals to whom Cassian owes money approach him, but he tells them they just have to wait a few more days, promising they'll get their money back soon. As Cassian continues his preparations to leave Ferrix, Deputy Inspector Cyril Karn's investigation intensifies. Karn's team searches for Kenari males on Ferrix, though they are apprehensive about obtaining such information. They tell Cyril that Ferrix is known for doing things their own way, but Cyril commands them to put out a bulletin anyway and set up a desk to receive any information about the suspect. In another flashback with the Kenari children, the episode ends with Cassian heading out with some other children to explore the crashed ship as his younger sister calls out for him. This concludes the first episode of Andor Season 1. The second episode of Andor Season 1 is titled, That Would Be Me. The episode opens with a flashback to the planet Kenari, where a group of young children, including a young Cassian Andor, known as Kassa at the time, are making their way through the dense forest. They are headed towards the site of a crashed ship, likely an Imperial mining vessel, As the group approaches the crash site, they come across a massive crater in the ground, forcing them to go around it. They eventually reach the ship and discover that one of the crew members is still alive. The Kenari children engage the soldier, using their blowguns to attack him. The soldier shoots at them with his gun repeatedly. The children's leader, who approaches first, is immediately killed by the soldier. However, the Kenari are finally able to kill the soldier after firing many arrows from their blowguns. The scene then shifts to the present day on the planet Ferrix, where Cassian Andor is making his way through the streets at the start of the workday. The clanging of a metal chest echoes through the air, signaling the beginning of the daily routine for the manual laborers of the town. Bix's current love interest and co-worker Tim is suspicious and jealous of Cassian and thinks that Andor is trying to steal Bix away from him. Tim's suspicions are heightened when he notices a bulletin from the Premor Authority, the local law enforcement, searching for a Kenari male matching Cassian's description. Cassian returns home to his mother, Marva, who has also seen the bulletin and confronts him about it. Cassian admits that he has messed up and reveals that he was involved in an incident on Morlana 1, where he accidentally killed one security guard and intentionally killed another. Marva asks him in a raised voice about who else knows about his Kenari heritage. We also learn that Marva was the one who helped Cassian hide his Kenari heritage and forged the records to say that Cassian is from the planet Fest instead. Marva tells him to be careful as Cassian runs out of the house to go meet Bix. Cassian then meets with Bix, who has also seen the bulletin. Cassian says that he has no time and offers Bix to buy the invaluable starship part from him, and in exchange, just give him enough credit so he can get off the planet. Bix, however, informs him that she has already contacted the buyer, and he will be here the next day. Cassian puts his hand on Bix's hand and tells her that he won't forget this kindness that she's shown him. However, unbeknownst to them, Tim has been watching their conversation. He grows increasingly jealous and decides to anonymously report Cassian to the authorities. In response to Tim's tip, Deputy Inspector Cyril Karn and Sergeant Linus Mosk of the Premor Authority assemble a squad of 12 guards to apprehend Cassian on Ferrix. Karn, eager to prove himself, delivers a brief and somewhat awkward speech to the squad before they depart for the town. Meanwhile, Cassian seeks to secure passage off Ferrix. He goes to meet the transport operator, Zanwan, and asks him how much it'll cost him to take a trip to Tassar. He tells Zanwan that he has to leave today and that he wants the discretionary package. Zanwan initially says 900 credits, but Cassian laughs it off. Cassian says that he only has 500, to which Zanwan says that the lowest he'll go is 700. He tells Zanwan to ready the ship within the hour and quickly runs off to make further arrangements. Meanwhile, the mysterious buyer Luthen flies above Ferrix in a hover bus, observing the scrapyard where he is supposed to meet Cassian. A talkative passenger strikes up a conversation with Luthen, mentioning that he works in propulsion. However, when the passenger inquires about Luthen's job, Luthen remains silent, avoiding any details about the nature of his work. The episode then returns to the flashback on Kenari, where the young Cassian and his tribe members retrieve the body of their fallen leader and make their way back to their camp. It is also revealed to us by Shanwan that the planet Kenari has been abandoned and is considered toxic after a mining disaster. In the present time, Cassian prepares to meet with the mysterious buyer, unaware that the Premor Authority squad, led by Karn and Mosk, is already en route to Ferrix to apprehend him. As the episode concludes, Cassian is seen walking with determination, intent on escaping before the authorities catch up, while the buyer's hover bus flies overhead. This concludes the second episode of Andor Season 1. The third episode of Andor Season 1 is titled Reckoning. The episode begins with a flashback to Cassian Andor's childhood on the planet Kenari. A young Kassa boards a crashed Republic ship and starts destroying the interior in a fit of anger after discovering the dead bodies of his tribe, their skin covered in an odd golden yellow sheen. Marva, a local scavenger, and her companion Clem find Kassa and realize he doesn't speak Basic. when B2 EMO informs them that another Republic ship is on the way. Marva decides to sedate Kassa and take him with them, despite Clem's protests, believing she is saving his life. In the present, the mysterious buyer Luthen Rail arrives on the planet Ferrix to meet Cassian and purchase a valuable Imperial tracking device that Cassian has stolen. Luthen is greeted by Bix, who directs him to the meeting spot where Cassian is hiding. Meanwhile, Cyril Karn and his Pre-Mor Authority team also arrive on Ferrix, armed with a warrant for Cassian's arrest. While hiding, Cassian visits his friend Brasso at a construction site and tells him he has money coming and will repay what he owes. Cassian also asks Brasso to keep an eye on Marva. Meanwhile, Cyril Karn and his team raid Marva's home, tearing it apart and tossing Cassian's room in search of any clues about him. Cassian inadvertently reveals his position by contacting B2 EMO, repeatedly asking the droid to come in and telling it to inform Marva that he's sorry for everything. The officers overhear this, allowing Cyril's men to trace and intercept the signal, quickly realizing Cassian is to their east. Leaving 2 men with Marva, the rest of the team rushes towards Cassian's location. The people of Ferrix, a proud and resolute community, resent how the soldiers are treating them. In protest, the locals shut their shops, and the workers start clanking metal in unison, creating an intimidating sound. In the meantime, a man informs Bix that the Pre-Mor officers are trashing Marva's place. She quickly realizes that someone has ratted out Cassian, as not many people know about his Kenari heritage. When Bix tries to run to help Cassian, Tim stops her, insisting that Andor can take care of himself, and she shouldn't go. Bix then realizes that her boyfriend Tim is the one who betrayed Cassian. As she runs out to warn Cassian, the authorities become suspicious of her behavior and detain her, causing her to bleed from her head during the encounter. Tim, who followed Bix, arrives at the scene and demands that they let her go. As he approaches the officers, one of them opens fire, killing Tim on the spot while a helpless Bix watches. Afterward, Luthen reaches the abandoned factory lot where Cassian is hiding. He asks Cassian to show him the tracking device that he's arrived to buy. Cassian unwraps the tracking device he intends to sell to him. Luthen tells Cassian that he'll give him 1,000 credits if he tells him how he got his hands on this device. Cassian tells him that he simply waltzed in there as if he belonged with them. He says he stole a uniform, dirtied his hands a little, and simply walked in. He further says that the Imperials are so full of corruption and pride that they wouldn't even notice if a commoner was walking through them. Luthen is so impressed by Cassian that he offers him the chance to join the growing rebellion against the Empire. As Cassian contemplates whether to accept Luthen's offer, they quickly realize they've been boxed in by the Pre-Mor authorities. As they attempt to flee, Cassian notices they've left the device behind and goes back to retrieve it. He narrowly avoids being crushed and shot, but ultimately has to retreat without the device. To create a distraction, Luthen detonates charges he had placed around the building. They escape the factory, killing almost all the officers that had surrounded them. As bodies start falling, the remaining officers grasp the gravity of the situation and decide to flank Cassian and Luthen, seeking hiding spots. Cyril Karn hides in a home but gets caught by Cassian and Luthen. Luthen then prompts Cassian to kill Karn, but Cassian chooses not to and instead asks Karn how many men he brought. Using a decoy speeder as a distraction, Luthen and Cassian slip away on a speeder bike and safely arrive at Luthen's ship. The episode ends with a final flashback to Kenari, where Marva and Clem take the sedated Kassa aboard their ship, separating him from his family and home planet, but saving him from inevitable doom and death. This concludes the 3rd episode of Andor Season 1.